Greetings from our studio here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we here at ColsenKeane have the privilege of taking the things that are most meaningful to you and wrapping them in leather. And my name is Scott, and this is Josh, our head leathersmith. And today we're going to walk you through what it means to put together one of our 817 bifold wallets. And so there's kind of a philosophy and concept behind all of it. And what we're excited about being able to do is be in your world, in your home, in your living room, in your shop. Maybe you've got several friends around you. You got the glass of wine, maybe a glass of scotch, a cup of coffee, and you're just able to, in a social way, in a communal way, come together with us and understand how and why we put together these kinds of pieces, and then maybe just make an evening for it, for yourself and with the folks that mean the most to you or around you. And so what we're wanting to do is show you how we assemble this bifold wallet. And so you should be receiving, or you should have in front of you, a kit of all the parts of the wallet, these three parts, some waxed thread and a couple of needles. And we will show you in just a moment in terms of how this all goes together. And sort of maybe the best part of this video is not the leather wallet, although we think very highly of the wallet, is what you get to hear in terms of how and why we assemble the way we do. And so I've asked Josh, our head leathersmith here at ColsenKeane, to walk us through what it means to put together this bifold wallet.
Right. So, like you already said, you'll have all the pieces. There's three pieces to this wallet. Here's the actual body, and then there's the two sides. And it's not a complete stitch, so we're going to do all the steps to stitch this wallet twice, because they're independent sections of stitching. So I'm going to start off with our pieces here. You can leave one aside, and we're going to touch the flesh sides together, line up all of our holes. You should see light through all the holes. All of them should line up, and there should be one extra hole on the inside in the body. And that is intentional, and it's an important hole that we'll use at the end. So I'm locking the wallet, lining up all the edges. I'm locking it into this stitching pony, which you don't need in order to make this wallet. We're using it just so we can hold it steady, so you could see all the steps, but you could do it in your lap or on a table or any way. So we have our holes lined up. We're going to take one of our pieces of thread and one of our needles, and we're going to go ahead and thread the needle. So I'm pinching the end here so it can kind of stay flat and slide through the eye of the needle instead of like bunching up and fraying. And the wax will help it stay flat. So we'll pass it through, pull it out about 1 inch or so, and we're going to take the sharp end of the needle. We pass through the bottom, take the sharp end towards the length of the thread and stab through. And we're just barely going to come through about that much. And then what we do, we're going to take the length of the thread again and come over, stab it again. Here, so now we'll take these two pieces. You have this little loop. We're going to pull this loop to the bottom of the needle. And this big loop, we're just going to shrink it by pulling this thread out. So you want to make this little S shape. And then you take the long end of the thread, hold the sharp end of the needle, and lock it. And you're ready to go. We'll do our other side. Pull it sharp. Pass it through the eye there. Pull it through about 1 inch, 1.25 inches. Stab it, bring it back. Stab it again. Pull this to the bottom. Shrink that down to the little S shape and lock it. This might be a little long, any longer than about 3/4 inch. You can kind of chop it off and it'll stay out of your way. So now you have one piece of thread for one side of the wallet, and you have both needles on each end. So we'll start here. We're going to start at the top in the very first hole, in the top of the wallet. So you're just going to take one needle and pass through the first hole all the way through. You're going to hold your needles together to where they're lined up at the top. You're going to pull it through so that both sides coming out of the left and right side of the wallet are the same length. So this next step is going to be, we're starting right here. The next step is going to be this double wrap over the edge. The reason we do that is because when you're shoving stuff into your wallet, into this back pocket here, you're pulling and causing some stress and tension. Yeah, a lot on this top corner in particular. So this loop will kind of just pull that together and not really allow you to cause any extra tension on the actual stitch itself. So we're just going to do this little lock loop there. And
so your beginning stitch and your ending stitch are probably your most important.
yes, and that's where we'll use that extra hole at the end. Because we do the double here in the beginning, we also double and wrap over the edge at the end. So in order to do that loop, remember both of our needles are the same length. So we're going to take our right needle coming out of the right side, come over the top of the wallet, and go into the same hole from the left back out to the right. Do that, you'll see this loop wrapped over the end. Do the same thing with the other one. Left needle goes over into the same hole from the right back to the left. We'll pull it through. Get these straight and pull it snug. And we pull it, we'll see like the little wax kind of building up there, but we don't want to crush the leather. So we want still this to be nice and flat. What we don't want is for this to be able to
pinch,
wiggle, or or move. Yeah, you don't want to get under the thread, but you don't want to pinch up the leather where it's kind of crushing either. So just nice, comfortably tight. So now we're done with that loop. So every hole after the first hole where you see the horizontal stitching is all the same, all the way from the first hole to the last hole. Every hole is going to be the same. So I'm going to show you in the first hole how we do the stitch, and I'm going to show you pretty slow all the way through here so you can get the steps, because every hole is the same, so it'll get really repetitive. So you'll kind of get a feel for it. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to kind of face it there. We go in with our left needle. So we're going to, remember both of them are still the same length as we did this wrap. We're going to go in with our left needle, and once it's about halfway through here, we're going to take our right needle and grab it from behind here to create this like plus sign cross thing with your needles, and you'll pull that through, and you're going to trade needles and put the other one in. So you pull this one out and put the right one in, and then the thread that's coming out of the same hole that you just pushed your needle through, you're going to wrap it over the needle, and the thread will all be in place. So you're going to go in with the left needle, grab it with the right, and what you want to make sure that when you trade needles that you don't stab the thread in the hole you just came out of. So what I do is I kind of pull these down out of the way, put the right needle in, and wrap the thread that you're sharing that hole with over. And it's the same thing, over and over. In with the left, grab it with the right, trade needles, wrap it over, pull it tight. In with the left, grab it from behind with the right, you're switching needles, put it in, and this thread over here, you're just going to wrap it over just one time over the top. And what that does is it just puts the thread in place so that when you pull the needles, everything is looking like a straight line. So in each hole, there's 2 pieces of thread sharing each hole, and when you wrap it over, after you trade, you wrap it over, you're putting the thread on the right side of the hole every time. So that makes it looks makes it look the exact same.
That whole linear piece is looking nice and straight
Right.
and square, where if it goes in awkwardly in different holes, it bunches up and doesn't look square, but that's what you're squaring it off every time.
Exactly. So do it for every single hole. And when you come around this round corner, everything will be the same.
So
Just keep following it.
While Josh is doing this, we use a polyester waxed thread for multiple reasons. One of them being the wax is helpful because when you're cranking down on it, it stays in place so that you can loosen everything up and then come through again. And so that's really important, not so much just in smaller items like these wallets, but in some of our satchels. When we have 4 and 5 feet of thread that we're using in trying to put these bags together. So the wax, it holds everything nice and securely while we're stitching. But the other reason why we use the polyester is it's very, very strong. So you can imagine after stitching 4 or 5 feet of thread that thread has to endure that process. And so that's why we use such an intense thread. So at every level, this is over-engineered. This is too intense, but it kind of aligns with our philosophy and how we do what we do here. And so the concept being is we use really strong thread with really beefy, thick leather, and that leather will hold up indefinitely. It won't tear and wane like most wallets do over 5 or 6 years. Looks like we're almost to the end of the first half of the wallet.
As you make this like curve over here, something you want to keep in mind is keeping these edges lined up, especially as you're rotating the wallet, coming around. We made sure that this was straight and flat, but when you come around, we need to make sure it stays that way. And that'll help all the holes stay lined up and your needles passing through nice and smooth straight. So now we're at our last hole, and we're going to stitch the last hole in the body like normal. And now, like we mentioned in the beginning, we start with the double, and we're going to end with the double, and we're going to wrap over the raw edge here.
When you say double, you wrap through it twice.
Yes, and we do that on the edge for the same reason as in the front. When you pack your stuff into the wallet, it just kind of holds down on the edge in a more secure way. So I'll take this out of here so I could turn it towards you. What we'll do, we'll take the needle coming in from the inside of the wallet. We're going to go back 1 hole, but we're not going to stab all the way through to the outside. We're just going to come through 1 layer of leather and come out into the inside of the wallet here. And pull it all the way through. We'll leave it loose. We're going to do the same thing on the back with the needle that's coming out of the back of the wallet. Come back 1 hole towards the inside of the wallet, but just through 1 layer. Pull that through. Now they're both loose at this point, so we're going to pull them tight individually. Pull them 1 at a time. Make sure that they're both evenly tight. And after that, both of the needles, the thread is coming out of this second hole here. So when we tie the knot here, we're going to want to make sure that the knot sinks all the way down into that hole. So we're going to tie the knot. The knot we use is called a double surgeon knot, and it looks a lot like the overhand first step of like tying your shoes, where you just kind of wrap it over like this. But you're going to do it twice. You're going to wrap it over. I use it on the needle, so it's kind of easy to control and to see. Just going to wrap over the needle twice, and we're going to sink it all the way down. You want to make sure that when you pull your thread tight for your knot, that you're pulling along with the thread so that the knot sinks as deep as it can. We don't want to pull like this. opposite of the
Yeah.
thread. We want to pull along the thread.
Makes sense.
So we did that. Now we're going to do it the opposite way. So you're crossing here, wrapping over twice. Or sinking it into the wallet. Pull it tight. And then your knot is tied, so there's no going back.
You're right.
It's done. That's the finishing touch, is the knot. So now we're just going to trim off all the thread, and we want to make sure not to trim it off too short, because if we do, then the knot, the ends of the thread that make the knot will kind of pop through,
Right.
and the knot will fail.
So a 1/4 inch, 1/3 of an inch, how much do you leave?
About 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch
Okay.
of thread. And then once we clip it, we don't want that hanging out.
Right.
So you can use your finger, your scissors, you can use the needles even to just kind of take that knot and tuck it in down. And like Scott was saying a minute ago, the wax will kind of act like a glue, hold that knot there where you won't ever notice it. And that's it for one side.
All right, man.
So one
Good.
thing also you'll notice when you're finished and you kind of take it away to look at it, it's full of wax. And that's because of the thread, like we've talked about. But this comes right off really easily. You can wipe it on your shirt, or you can use a little towel. And the wax, it means nothing to the leather. It won't stay there or ruin it or anything.
Yep.
So that'll go away. So now we'll start on the other side.
So here at ColsenKeane right now, we are in our live studio, and I mean in terms of a working studio. So we've got our 4 leathersmiths and our benches over here, and we've got some interns in the space right now. We've got clients coming and going, and you hear machinery in the background and doors closing and bells on the doors. And so it's very earthy and organic, and so it's why you hear the real-time work of what's happening here in our studio. And so if you happen to be in the Charlotte region, man, we would love to have you come by and visit with us and get to meet Josh and some of our other leathersmiths and our other staff that make this company happen.
So we'll get started on the other side. We're going to thread the needle just like in the beginning. Kind of pinch that so it could go through. Pass through about 1 inch. Come back and stab it. Wrap it over, stab it again. Push that to the bottom of the needle. Create that little S shape and lock it. Same thing on the other side. Pass it through. Over. Stab it. Wrap it over. Stab it again. Lock it up. Now I'm going to trim this. Here we are, just ready to start both ends. The needles are ready. We're going to line up the other pocket. Make sure you can see light through all the holes. And once the edges are all lined up, that's when you'll be ready to start. The edges and the holes are lined up. I'm going to start in our first hole. Pull our thread where it's even. Both sides are the same. I'm going to do that wrap over. So you take your right needle, pass it over, come back into the same hole from the left to the right. Take your left needle, pass it over from the right back to the left. And then we'll pull it where these pieces are touching. We'll pull it nice and snug, not too tight. And then we get back into the stitch from the second hole on. Into the left, grab it with the right, pull it out of the way, put the right needle in, wrap it over, pull it tight. In with the left, trade, put the other needle in, wrap it over the needle, pull it tight. Each hole you want to make sure is pulled tight so that we don't have any loops. You don't want to be able to get behind any of the thread. You might see while you're stitching the next hole that the hole you just left, that thread may want to get a little loose. But when you pull the hole, when you pull this thread tight, the one that you're working on right now, the previous one will also tighten back up, and the wax will hold it tight as you move on. So as long as you're pulling it tight each time you pull the needles apart, it'll work out. The wax does its job, and you get a nice straight line of tight stitches. Just gonna go around this.
So while Josh is doing that, I'll explain kind of the philosophy behind this wallet. So for us here at ColsenKeane, we guarantee everything for life, and so in order to do so, we have to use relatively thicker leather so that it can endure all the daily use of how you use your wallet. And so the idea behind this is we use a 5-ounce thick piece of leather. It's about an eighth of an inch thick. And instead of having multiple layers, because that takes up a lot of real estate in your pocket, we cut slits in the leather. Because our leather is so thick, you're not going to tear that leather by putting cards in there. And so invariably when you fill up your wallet the first day or so, it'll feel like you can't fit everything in there, but over the next couple of days, it will stretch like all your wallets have stretched, and you'll find yourself being able to put 3 or 4 cards in each of these slots if that's something that was what you need to do. Again, also the idea is you can put your cash in here, fold it up, and it's small enough you can put it in your front pocket or in your back pocket if you want to do the sort of George Costanza thing and keep your birth certificate and everything else in here. But this is designed to hold up for life, and it's also designed to be used to carry plenty of cash, and it will stretch and it will emerge for you. Looks like you're almost done with that second half.
Right, so I stitched like normal, just like our other side, stitched like normal to the very last hole in the body. Now we're going to just do our back stitch, which create a double, and tie our knot, and we'll be good to go. Come back 1 hole into the inside of the wallet. Leave it fairly loose. Do the same thing back here. Back 1 hole into the inside of the wallet. Okay, and then we're going to pull individually. Pull them tight. Now we're ready to tie our knot. Gonna wrap over the right side twice and bring it all the way to that second hole and pull your knot along the stitching. You're gonna wrap back over the left twice, come down, and when you pull it tight, that completes the double surgeon knot. You can kind of see the knot in there. And there shouldn't be any loose thread behind the knot. The knot should sink all the way into that hole as far as it can. So once it's tied, we'll clip it off with about 1/4 inch of extra thread. And we'll tuck that knot in, kind of gluing it to the thread, and it'll be out of the way. That way when you put all your stuff in it, that knot is practically not even there.
Josh, that's awesome. You're like the Bob Ross of leather.
There it is.
That's awesome, dude. Man, thank you all so much for letting us be in your home. Part of what we get to do is not only provide you leather goods, but hopefully create an experience for you. And grateful for the opportunity. Look forward to future opportunities where we can be in your home and you can assemble some of our leather goods here. Again, my name is Scott, and this is Josh. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, info@ColsenKeane.com, and grateful for your time today.